Gina Hinojosa, Democratic candidate for governor. Thank you so much. Welcome back to Eye on Politics.
It's great to be with you.
So let's talk about this new poll that came out today from the Texas Politics Project. Shows you within 5 percentage points, 45 to 40%. When you look at the average of polls, the Real Clear Politics, it's about a 4 percentage point race. And the one thing that also stuck out was 38% of independents are undecided. So how are you going to attract those voters, and how are you going to keep this race tight as Governor Abbott's going to start advertising heavily on TV?
Right. Well, we've closed that gap in half. We cut it in half. We started off in February. That same poll had us 10 points down. So we've closed that gap to 5 points down. And we still have a lot of people to reach. We now have 10 weeks until Election Day, 8 weeks till early vote. And you will see me everywhere. And you will see us on TV, on radio. You hear us on radio. You will see us reaching out in all the ways, social media, to be able to reach that last voter with my vision for the future. My agenda is to secure the American dream by saving Texas schools and putting money in your pocket. That is the sole focus of this agenda, of this campaign. Everyone's done with the culture wars. Nobody has really the luxury to be focused on those. It's about kitchen table issues, and that's what this campaign is about.
I know one other issue that's really come up, and it's part of your priorities, are data centers. And you've been out there urging the governor, along with other Democratic candidates, to call lawmakers such as yourself back into session. Why is that so important to you?
Right. Well, Jack, you know as well as I know that the only real way we can protect Texans from all sorts of abuses is to pass laws, right? The governor says he's issued a pause on any new data center approvals, but we know that he can change his mind November 4th, and likely that will be what he does. He's received $20 million from the data centers for his campaign. And so there's
Do you think he's going to change his mind after?
I think most people think that he's going to change his mind, or why wouldn't he call us back for a special session? He's called so many special sessions since I've been in the legislature. Too many to count, actually. He's probably got the record for calling the most special sessions of any governor. But no special session on this issue that we're hearing just so many concerns about in Texas, because there's been this massive, almost gold rush of data centers into Texas with the law that he signed in 2015 to allow these hyperscale data centers to get 20-year tax breaks. They don't pay any tax on electricity, and we know that they guzzle a substantial amount of electricity. And so they are all now trying to get in under the wire before the session can meet next year and undo those things, because now we're hearing from lots of lawmakers that that probably wasn't a good law to pass, and they want to undo it. Well, we need to pass those laws now to undo that and put in place real protections for Texans, because right now what is happening is there are no rules. And so these data centers, especially in these rural unincorporated areas, have come in and they don't have paid firefighters, paid EMS, and there are these massive, somebody died at one of these data centers in the construction of one of these data centers. They don't require for licensed electricians. There are literally no rules when it comes to how much water they consume, electricity, all sorts of things. And so Texans are rightfully angered about what has happened and want changes now, want protections now.
And I wanted to ask you about, if you had a choice, if it was up to you, what legislation would you like to see come out of either, I don't know if there is going to be a special session, but even if you are, if the lawmakers are back in a regular session, what is it that you would like to see happen?
The thing that I'm hearing from Texans is they want a seat at the table to be able to decide if and how these data centers come into their communities. Right now, they just have no control. And in these unincorporated rural areas, their local electeds have no power to regulate these data centers at all. So people are not protected. So we have to start there. Even in the municipal areas, we know that Governor Abbott has really reined in the authority that local governments have to regulate things. And so again, at minimum, the local elected officials need to have some power to protect their people, and they just don't have that right now. So we start there. Also, we have to eliminate those tax breaks that Greg Abbott gave these data centers. They're owned by the richest men in the world. They should pay for themselves. I guarantee you that would slow down the development of data centers, because when you can use taxpayer money to build them, they're built a lot faster. We need to make sure, for instance, that they're not shipping in labor from other countries to build these. If this is about jobs, and there are some people who make good money building data centers, then they should be American union jobs, union, so that they have the power to stand up against these big data center corporations, these global corporations, and push back to support and defend workers' rights. So those are some of the things that we need to see, but there really is just this there's broad need for protections to protect Texans right now from data centers. Water, electricity, I mean, that list goes on. Let's start with AI too. We know that right now AI is predicted to take all our jobs. We need to have some bright line regulations and rules and laws about what AI is for and what it is not for. It is not for replacing teachers. It is not for replacing nurses. It is not for making life and death decisions about health care. So those are some of the bright line rules we need in place. In laws right now, again, there are no rules.
Property rights is also a big thing, especially when you go out in these unincorporated areas.
Right.
Because the counties don't have zoning authority, and people who live out there, like it that way. They live in the unincorporated area, so counties can't tell them what to do. But at the same time, the data centers come in and there's really nothing to stop them.
Right.
Do you see that as an issue that has to be dealt with?
I think the data centers are taking advantage of that circumstance, and that circumstance occurs because of individual property rights. People want the freedom to be able to do what they want on their land, but when you have these hyperscale data centers now coming in under those same very kind of liberal abilities to do whatever they want to do, it really is taking advantage of a situation that was not anticipated. And that's the thing I just want to make clear. I don't hate data centers. What I hate is the way they're taking advantage of people, and what I hate is the way that Greg Abbott is allowing them to do that.
He says his pause is working, though. That's what he told me, because I asked him, why not bring lawmakers back? He said his plan is working, and that because of this comprehensive audit that he's required PUC and the ERCOT to do, that it's going to take months. You're smiling.
I don't think, do you believe him? Most Texans don't believe him and don't think that there's any substance there. He's basically written letters to himself, the people he's appointed to be there, after having taken millions of dollars into his campaign from these data center interests. They've all said they like it when the regulated entity is saying that they're all for what is being done to them. That's got to raise some eyebrows. Look, nobody is protected until laws are passed to protect people. That is the way this works. Everybody knows that's the way this works. Greg Abbott, of all people, former Supreme Court judge, knows that's the way this works. He's playing political games, and most people see it.
Your policy about money in your pocket. You want the legislature to pass a bill that would issue a one-time $1,500 refund check to every household in Texas, take the money out of the rainy day fund, which you estimate would be about $17 billion, leave about $10 billion in there. Why do you want to do that?
I can't find an economist who thinks it's a good idea for the state to be sitting on $27 billion. We've never had that much money in the rainy day fund. It is irresponsible. It should be working in the economy. It is the hoarding of money in Austin, and especially at a time when people are struggling, working Texans are struggling like I've never seen before. I think the responsible thing is to give it back at this point. This rainy day fund has historically been at about $10 billion. We've never taken out more than $3 billion at any given time. It automatically refills about $2 billion a year, 1.5 to $2 billion a year. So it'll get back up there. But here is what I am seeing across the state is that people don't trust government. They don't believe government can do anything to help them, to make their lives better. The government that you and I, that all of us pay for, people don't believe it serves them. We need to demonstrate that government can do something to make their lives easier. So that's what that's about. I call it the Greg Abbott corruption tax refund, because what I see in the legislature is that so many laws that are passed are driven by moneyed interests, which is a type of corruption that is really driving the system. So the way I see it, we are paying into a system that is working against us. We need a clean slate, fresh start, but we start by restoring trust in government being able to serve the people who are paying for it.
So after you released that plan, Republicans criticized it, saying you were trying to buy votes. What do you say to that?
I'd ask them if they'd vote against it. I've heard some criticism. I haven't heard a single legislator say they're against it. And I invite them to say they're against it if they are. I think voters should know in November where they stand on this. Listen, we hear all the time from Republican leaders that government has too much money. So I'm saying let's send it back. It is a fiscally conservative thing to do, to give people back their money. That's what this is about at a time when, Jack, I'm coming across working Texans who are donating plasma as a second job 2 to 3 times a week, having to stand in line at the plasma center before they open, before their next job, to give blood to pay their bills. That's the level of struggle people are experiencing in this high cost economy in Texas. We have a responsibility to do something to help people. This is my proposal, this is my solution. And I would invite legislators from both parties to join with me in figuring out how we deliver real results for people.
And is this in addition to property tax relief or instead of property tax relief in this case?
No, I do think we need to reform our property tax system. And we need a lot of reforms in the system. The rainy day fund is one-time money, right? It can't be used for reoccurring expenses. But systemically, there is definitely reform we need to do for property tax relief. And property taxes, especially for homeowners, is way too high. It's skyrocketed under Greg Abbott. And yes, I think we need to bring it way down.
And as far as like, are you going to clamp down on local governments, or is this just for how do you pay for schools?
So look, Greg Abbott and our current leadership have gotten real good about blaming other people for the problems in the state without taking ownership of what has happened. So, and what has happened in this state is that local governments really have their hands tied behind their backs in all sorts of ways, and our schools being big players and a big part of that, right? What I think needs to happen is that we need to reform the way we do economic development in this state. And instead of giving these corporations all these tax breaks to come into our communities, to often hire people from other states, I think we need to flip the script on that, take that money and invest in Texans. I think that's a way we buy down property taxes in this state, is to do away with all those corporate handouts and use that money to cut property taxes for homeowners. And if we can eliminate them, great. I am committed to fully funding schools, but yes, property taxes are way too high.
And healthcare, I know you want to expand Medicaid to cover every child in the state. Is that right?
I want to ensure, my plan is to ensure every Texas child has health care. The way we do that is by expanding Medicaid.
Okay. And you also say on your website you want to strengthen rural hospitals. How?
Also, expansion of Medicaid helps with that. We are one of the few states in this country that has not expanded Medicaid. Democrats have run for years on expanding Medicaid. I think the problem with that is that real people don't understand why that's good and if that's good for them. We need to run on what we're going to accomplish, and then let the regulators, the lawmakers, the policymakers figure out how to get there. But a commitment to the people to ensure every Texas child, and also, yes, to support our rural hospitals.
Last question, and that is, if you are elected, you may still have a Republican majority in the Senate, a Republican majority in the House. So how do you convince Republicans to go ahead with that, since they haven't done that before?
So the things that I'm running on are not Democratic issues. They are just issues to help people, right? Saving Texas schools by paying teachers to be amongst the highest paid in the nation after cutting all the corrupt vendor contracts that have accumulated in this state when it comes to our public education money. Find me a Republican who's against that. Putting money in your pocket, again, I've yet to find a legislator who is against what I'm proposing when it comes to that, who is against ensuring every Texas child, who is against freezing electricity rates, which I have also put forward as part of my agenda to ensure that these corporations are paying their fair share, including the data centers, who are going to be a big part of this problem. I've yet to find legislators who are against it. I think in 2026, we don't have the luxury of fighting these partisan wars. Nobody has patience for it. People just want leadership that's going to deliver for them. They want leaders who are going to work for them. That is what I am running to accomplish. I think that's why it's resonating so much with Texans. That's why we have 6 polls in 3 weeks that show we're in a virtual tie with Greg Abbott. People don't want politics as usual. They want a leader who will work for them.
We will leave it there. Democratic candidate for Governor Gina Hinojosa. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.